This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, this week's PR Podcast plug goes out to Christine Garlisi and Jacqueline Tacarante, both former guests on the show, who threw a terrific event on Staten Island recently to raise money for the Sunrise Day Camp that serves kids battling childhood cancer. Christine reached out on Instagram to me with a terrific post. We shared it on Instagram, so check out the PR Podcast feed and you'll see details about that event. She says they had a great day. They were playing bocce. I don't know how to play bocce. It's something with a ball that you throw and people do it on the beach. But she says she didn't personally win the game, but everyone who was there came out a winner. So congratulations to Christine and Jacqueline. Great work making the community on Staten Island a better place to be. Now, if you want to be featured with your own PR podcast plug, send me an email to Jody at Jody Fisher PR, or reach out on any of the socials, either to me at Jody Fisher or at the PR Podcast, and send us a note about something you're doing outside of your 9 to 5, something cool like what Jacqueline and Christine did, and we will feature you at the top of an upcoming show. Now let's get on with our show today. We have two terrific guests. April White and Laura Schooler are co-hosts of the two-time award-winning podcast, The PR Wind Down, where they gab, analyze, dissect, and commiserate on the biggest issues impacting PR practitioners. They're also busy PR executives running their own businesses. April is a public relations veteran, TEDx speaker, and the CEO and founder of virtual PR agency Trust Relations. She's also an official contributor to Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Newsweek, and was recently named a finalist in the Stevie Awards for Women in Business in the Maverick of the Year category. That's awesome. Last year, she took home the Gold Award for the Most Innovative Woman of the Year, Advertising, Marketing, and Public Relations. Now, New York City-based Laura Schooler is a PR communications consultant with vast experience in multiple industries, including professional services, entertainment, marketing, and more. She brings wisdom and creative flair to her work, and her ability lies in quickly raising an organization's public profile by targeting key audiences via PR, while also navigating regulatory requirements, other sensitive issues. April and Laura, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you. So glad to be here. It's so exciting.
Now, as we tape this, we are living through some biblical rain here in the New York City area. And Laura, I know that you're in Manhattan. Everything okay where you are?
Well, I didn't really want to talk about it because I'm on the Upper West Side, so I'm fine here because it's sort of up on a mountain. But I'm getting photos of another property I own in New Jersey, and we may not be so lucky.
Oh my goodness. It is. I mean, we're talking a foot plus of water that is down there. It's going down into the subways. It's stopping all surface transportation. I think the buses are suspended at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to cross my fingers.
Yeah, we'll cross them for you too, because no one likes that narrative. Just crazy stuff. We're glad you're safe, and that was the whole point of the question.
That's true.
So let's talk about the two of you. You co-host, and you were kind enough to have me on your podcast. But how did the two of you bump into and find each other?
Laura, do you want to tell the story of how we met? I feel like this is like a couple's story, even though we're not a couple.
I know. Well, I was newly deciding to really give freelancing a go. So I was trying all the new sites, and this is just going back 5 or 6 years ago. And Upwork was one of those sites. And April was there on Upwork, and it was like a match made on Match.com.
April, do you feel the same way?
Oh, 100%. In fact, Jody, it was so weird. I actually kind of felt this way when we met you as well. Like there's this strange kind of familiarity that feels like we know each other from somewhere, right? How do we not? And Laura and I, we at least on my end, I felt so much when I first met her, like I should know her already, that I started throwing out, okay, wait, are you into reggae? I was like, have you been at this? Like, I really tried to figure it out. And then we came to the conclusion, no, we really hadn't met. It just felt like we're just kindred spirits that had already known each other for years, you know?
But that
Or
is a
should have known
huge
each
green
other.
light. That is a huge green light in a relationship, whether it's people you're working with or clients you're representing. When you, for lack of the better phrase, when you vibe with somebody,
Yeah.
you can do so much better work, I feel.
Yeah.
I'm sure you felt that with clients too, right? I mean, give me maybe a for instance of, you don't have to drop names, but like a for instance, when you really vibe with a client, what does that do for the work product?
Usually it makes it amazing because you just understand each other inherently and you know how to communicate. And there are all these ways in which you don't have to figure each other out because it just feels like, oh, we've always known each other. So I already know this is going to piss you off, or like this is going to irritate you, or this is going to make you happy, or this is not going to make you, as happy, or, so there's like it feels like the learning curve isn't there as much when you have that kind of connection. Yeah.
Totally. So now when do you two get the idea, hey, we should do a podcast together?
So one day, I remember this. Laura made a face, so I don't think she remembers.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So we were just gabbing. We had been talking about work, and then we got off the topic of work. And Laura mentioned that she had been a stand-up comic. And I was like, hold the phone. No wonder you're so funny, but also, wait, why aren't we doing a podcast? Because I used to do improv comedy and we both do PR. And so then it's like, what could otherwise be a very boring podcast? You put two people in that have like some comedy background. Not going to say we're comedy superstars, but at least we know, we know a little bit about how to make people laugh occasionally. So that was sort of the impetus. I said, Laura, why aren't we doing a podcast? We should do a podcast. And she said, okay. And then we took the idea to the whole agency at Trust Relations and did a brainstorm on what we should call it based on what we were trying to achieve by doing it. And it all just kind of fell into place. I don't remember now who had the idea for the PR Wind Down, but it was such a perfect name based on the concept that we had in our head, and we just loved that it kind of clicked all at once. Like, oh, this is just something we're supposed to do. And it was during the pandemic as well. So it was back when, starting podcasts was what everyone did, because what else are you going to do?
Those of us who might have been stuck in our garages, like nothing to do.
I had also done a couple of podcasts. So I wasn't doing one at the time. So
and
I think I probably mentioned
Bullpen Betty too.
Right. So I've been doing baseball, podcasts and radio and sometimes TV even. And I was in a nowhere zone. So I was very happy to have that outlet to do a podcast of any kind. I'll do a podcast on any topic.
But that's what many people say about me. He'll talk about anything. It's interesting you bring up the stand-up comedy and the improv, because we had a guest on a while back, Steve Cody from Peppercom, and he has a process where he has all of his PR reps go through improv training. How do you feel that helps prepare someone for working with clients, for working with press? I mean, sort of have to be smart on your feet, right?
That's a great question. I feel like I don't want to step on Laura's toes. I saw her open her mouth too, but I would say from my perspective, there's you kind of have to give yourself to the process when you're doing improv. You can't have everything figured out, and you have to just identify in the moment. Well, in improv, it's what the game is, what makes something funny. And so the second that somebody says something funny, so for example, in this, maybe we would point out, okay, Laura and I made this thing about our relationship and how we met. And so maybe there are two callbacks to what's funny about how people met that mimics a romantic relationship, but isn't, right? So maybe it's like and then it can get more and more absurd. So you can take it from something like that's kind of normal. And then maybe you heighten it, and the next time it's like your dry cleaner when you met and the chemistry you had, or so it could be something kind of like that. And then there should be a third callback to make it perfect. But I think that there's something about being present in the moment and not needing. I think a lot of us don't listen because we're so busy thinking about what we're going to say next. But it teaches you the art of listening, because you have to be present. You have to observe. You can't be in your head. You can't be thinking about what you're going to say next. You have to be just laser focused on what's happening in that space, and then identify, what about it is interesting and reflect
Is that how it
back.
works for you, Laura?
Well, I mean, the whole premise of improv is yes and, right? You never say no, or you never stop the scene or the flow. And so having that mindset helps you not only with clients, but also with helping to mentor, junior staff members, people that any person that you work with. It's so the yes and mentality. And then I also find that the comedy mentality helps to sort of lighten the mood and get people off this, like, oh my God, kind of panic driven sense, which is what a lot of PR, is, because some of it is crisis communications or whatever. And it sort of makes people stop and, laugh at life. And then it enables them to be easier and freer in doing their work. And so I think it makes for more successful product and, relationships all the way around.
I love that yes and concept. I mean, I try to be as positive as I can, understanding that as PR people, we also have to be very realistic and manage expectations an awful lot. But I still subscribe to the yes and philosophy. And that's great. Do you feel yourself using that on the Flair?
No, I definitely have. I definitely have. Yeah. I mean, it's like, oh my God. Okay. So this is a great example. Are you ready? So we're thinking we're redoing the website. We're launching it in a week, and we want to put out a press release. And then you say, yes. And why don't we make it a momentum release about what's going on with the company and how far you've come? And we can include that as a nugget, but let's not make that the focus, right? So they're like, but anyway, I didn't mean to step on Laura's comedic toes, is she?
That made my day. That answer just made my day. So then what is the approach to working with clients? I mean, do you have a way that you like to work with clients, to try to uncover, I call it like digging into their DNA, or figuring out not just the story that they want to tell, but sort of the why that they're there? Because that really informs the best of what we do.
I'm giving Laura a moment since I keep talking over her.
No, but I think this question is better suited for you, actually.
Oh, finally. Okay.
I should have answered all the other questions, but this one.
Okay, I will answer no more questions after this. Okay. So I actually start every relationship with the client, unless there is some extenuating circumstance where they recently did something like this. But I started with kind of a branding messaging exercise where I sit down with the executives for 2 hours and just ask them really granular things that are kind of outside the storytelling scope, to really get to the root of how the business works, what's worked in the past with marketing, what really makes them different, where they want to stand out, what they're happy with in their current positioning, what they're not, what about their logo they think expresses them, what doesn't, so just really trying to get to the root of that. And usually what happens is, in the process, they mention things that's like, oh, hold the phone, that is interesting. And then I dig into that. And so it's just a way, rather than making them feel put on the spot, where it's like, let's just get to the bottom of what it is that we're trying to say that differentiates you from, the competition, and make sure that all of our storytelling from there on out maps back to those key points. So that's really what I tell them. But then it's, in the process, a lot comes out that's like, wait, none of this came out when we talked before. I don't think the team would have known this if, we hadn't done this exercise. So that's sort of how I kick it off. And then the team from there obviously will dig in further, based on subsequent conversations. But that sets us off in a really good note.
Yeah, I find that with some clients, and those specifically those who are unaccustomed to working with, or never worked with public relations or even marketing or branding folks, people who tell stories, that they focus an awful lot on the end result rather than the core components, like you said, pieces of the puzzle that are going to get them there and the process that's needed to get them to where they want to be. Laura, what's your take on that? I mean, when you're dissecting what a client wants or needs, and you're trying to find the story or you're trying to find the narrative, are there go-tos, ways that you sort of pull that out of them, instead of just saying, hey, what are you doing, or do you got something that's going on? I mean, that's sort of like the baseline thing. How do you dig into people's
I will have discussions with them. I mean, I deal with a lot of different kinds of clients, so it's hard to say like there's one way that works. But I will say, for example, I work with, this is always an interesting cocktail party conversation starter. I work with opera singers, and I'll set up a 40-ish minute conversation with them when I first meet them and just ask them all about their lives. And because people don't know what rings true for PR. It's just their life or their business. They don't really understand what news media might find interesting. So just having a, personal getting to know you conversation, you can learn so much and really start to build the strategy and the framework, from there.
That's where a lot of those great stories, quote unquote, come from. I mean, the profiles that you end up seeing on the nightly news and the big giant pieces that you read in print that have this amazing backstory only get unearthed when you have that kind of a conversation and kind of prompt people to just relay the basic details of, maybe what they think is, oh, it's just my life, like you said, they're so close to it and they've lived it. They don't necessarily think it's special, but we from the outside can put a finger on it and go, hey, that's something, that's a starting point there.
Yep.
In terms of maybe ways that you encourage people or methods or vehicles that you use to promote your clients. I mean, obviously there's the tried and true traditional, right? There's newspaper, radio, TV, that kind of stuff. Obviously social media that we work with. Are there other ways that you see kind of maybe up and coming or non-traditional things that you like to do, or just ways that you like to layer on additional exposure? Because we know PR is all about raising visibility. Are there things that you do that maybe are off the grid?
April, I think that you can answer this one too.
I was like, I'm gonna stay quiet. Let Laura answer. So I don't know how off the grid they are. I think lots of people in PR are very innovative and are doing things, to push the envelope. But with that said, I have been doing a little bit of expanding our affiliate on the consumer side of things. Affiliate marketing is now essential, I'm sure to pitching lifestyle reporters. And so we actually have added on, that we do affiliate marketing. So we offer that, and we'll do things like, okay, we're going to change the back end. And for this 2-week spread, we're going to give, if reporters post, they get 20% back instead of the normal 8 or 10 or whatever it is. So there are some of those things happening that, say what you will about the state of the industry, that's a thing, but that's a thing. So that's a thing that we've been incorporating a little bit more aggressively, I think, than maybe some other agencies. And even just like I said, to offer, we'll set up your affiliate marketing channels, we'll manage them for you if you need us to do that. So that's something a little bit out of the box. We also now offer podcast production. So if a client, in addition to wanting to be a guest, wants to also create their own thought leadership channel by having their own dedicated podcast, that's something we can assist with and help book guests and identify people that are the right fit to help expand their network. But that's really more of a thought leadership initiative or a branding initiative than it is kind of PR. I mean, it's sort of PR, sort of not PR. It's still kind of PR.
I'm curious on the podcast. No, it's definitely PR, right? I mean, yeah, I'm of the mind that kind of almost everything is PR, right? If you're telling a story out to an audience, that is a form of public relations. Regardless of the vehicle, it's all about messaging to an audience.
Right.
Specifically on the topic of the podcast, How do you advise people? Because I've had people come to me, clients come to me too. Oh, we want to start a podcast.
Yeah.
But that's all that they've really thought about. What's the conversation that you have?
Well, first of all, I let them know that it's not a cheap endeavor, and also that the ROI on it is questionable in terms of actual money back. In terms of branding, it's great. In terms of, if they're going to have guests on that are going to help them sort of cross promote, and it's almost like a co-branding initiative on a mini scale when you have enough guests on that are going to help expand your audience by extension. But it is a tricky thing in terms of if a company is in a place where every dollar they invest in a marketing or PR initiative, they need back in the bank within 6 months to a year. This is not a tactic for them. It's really not. So, because it is just a slow burn, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. It's like you need to have an executive who is comfortable, who's well-spoken, who's engaging, who has interesting points of view on things that aren't like everyone else. I mean, it isn't for everyone. So all of those things need to be taken into consideration when you're deciding if that's really a great avenue for you, or maybe you should just be a guest more and see if you can get your on-air personality dialed in.
Yeah, right. I typically advise that before you try starting your own podcast, go be a guest on some podcasts and see how it feels.
Yes.
Laura, you must prep clients for podcasts and in other interview opportunities. Do you have a particular approach or things that you tell people before they guest on podcasts?
For guests on podcasts, we don't really actually prep them too much. Our producer helps us do that ahead of time. So, but interestingly, do we want to talk about the Steve Cody thing, April?
I don't remember what that would be.
Okay, so Jody just talked about Steve Cody. He's going to be our next guest, and he sent us his book to read, to discuss.
Okay.
When we tape this coming week. So, some of our guests have like a film or a book or something like that. So they have an agenda for sure. And April and I will, watch or read or et cetera ahead of time and try to come up with questions that allows them, we all know why they're there. They want to talk about, what they've created, but also questions that are maybe a little bit unexpected to make things a little bit more interesting and not just a commercial for whatever content that, they're talking about. But, for media relations, I have sat in 1,000 media training sessions. And so one of the things that I always tell people when they're doing an interview is, because a lot of the B2B people that I work with are very smart, very well educated, very steeped in whatever industry they're in, and they're used to answering clients. And so they're used to giving the clients all of the information, answering every question, and trying to get, an A+ on their client test, if you will. And I said, in a media setting, this is not a test. You are there to deliver a message to the readers or the viewers of whatever reporter that you're talking to. And that really, think of it more from an academic standpoint, that you're like, the professor on this, and you're trying to intrigue and educate your class. So that's a kind of technique I try to get in people's heads so that they don't feel that interviews are just like question, answer,
Yeah, more of an organic conversation, which is kind of what we try to do here. We prep, questions and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about, having a conversation with someone. To me, that's what podcasts are for.
Yeah.
Any predictions on where PR is going? It's constantly changing. And I think that's a good thing for us because, in addition to us having to adapt and having something interesting to think about all the time, it's also, keeps us employed and keeps us advising our clients. There's this new thing, there's this new something that's coming out. Here's an opportunity, that you may want to take advantage of. Are there any new technologies that you all are taking advantage of, or any new opportunities you're taking advantage of that you see coming down the pike, other than AI?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Everybody's talking about AI, and I mean, but we're just getting into it. So yes. And every podcast that we've put out for the past few months, I'm like, I took step 1 in AI and I took step 2. And the past week or so, I've taken a few more steps, and I'm really seeing how beneficial it is, and that why not anybody can just do it, because not everybody knows what questions to ask
Prompts,
or
yeah.
what, prompts to put in. And then also to know if whatever AI platform you're using, because I'll check on like all 2 or 3 of them, right? To know whether what you're getting back is legit or not. And in every case, you have to do some additional research behind that. But what I have found is that it makes it quicker and more interesting. So I don't know what other technologies, if you have any in mind, April, you might want to.
Well, just to kind of answer and parlay that answer into the question that Jody asked before that.
Yes, and.
I think we're going to be starting to look at crisis communications around ChatGPT and AI engines, where there's misinformation that's circulating or correct information that they don't want out there. In which case it's going to be a little bit like, oh God, what do we do now? The internet shows right now, this is the current version, where it's like, we need to push down this story that came out that we don't want people to see, or we need to push down this information through doing a concentrated SEO PR, 1-2 punch campaign, which a lot of people obviously do now. But I think what's going to happen next is that there's going to be misinformation that's in ChatGPT, and how the hell do you get rid of that? Or correct information that nobody wants, like your client doesn't want out there.
The opposite.
And you're trying to figure out how to bury it. And like, I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but I think in 4 years, that's going to be all the rage. Like, how do you get your client the reputation fixed in the AI engine?
I think that's a great point, and
wow, that's great.
Builds on the concern that I had with stories that I've been reading about allowing ChatGPT to use your voice, to give ChatGPT of a person's voice. So now the currency that we deal in, which is authenticity, right, coming from the source. Now all of a sudden you've got a bot that looks and sounds like somebody that it's not.
Right.
And now you're having to deal with whatever that bot is saying in that person's likeness, and then dealing with the information or misinformation that has got the added level of authenticity because it looks like it came from that person.
Right. And then it's like, how do you prove that your client didn't actually say that wasn't them? Because it sounds like them. It was their voice. So maybe they did say that. Maybe they said that horrible thing.
Crazy. This is how Skynet starts.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it's a little bit scary. The other thing that I'm keeping an eye on and interested to see where it goes is I feel like with more and more media outlets using paywalls for content, and even more and more Substack writers coming in, to the forefront that require subscriptions, I'm a little bit concerned about what that's going to mean for media placements. How are you going to prove to your client the ROI on media placements that are behind a paywall? And how do you know how many people then saw them? And they can't then use them for marketing purposes, because that requires that the people receiving the ad that they did to promote that they were in Forbes, or whatever, like now requires that those viewers have a subscription, which they probably don't or have to. I mean, who knows, right? So I'm a little bit like, oh, that's gonna make things complicated for us.
Good word.
You're
right. You're
I was
totally
gonna say
right.
something a little more aggressive, but I decided to PR it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's gonna
this has been
fascinating.
fascinating. We could go all day long, but I gotta let the two of you go. but not before we finish out our show. And this is where we segue into the rapid fire question portion of our program, where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe your laugh or two. I want both of you to answer each one of these 5 questions. Here we go. April White and Laura Schooler. Rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
Are you going first, Laura? I'm going. We're supposed to go fast. This is supposed to be fast. I use an aggregator called Ground News that feeds you the news that's coming through, and also along with it gives you a sentimentality reading, so you can know if it's right leaning, left leaning, or centrist.
Oh, good.
Wow.
And so you have an idea as you're looking at the news what slant it's coming from, so you can take that into consideration as you're trying to remain objective while reading the news.
That's valuable. I like that.
Yeah.
Laura?
Jeez, that's so for business, for general news, New York Times. For business, I like the newsletters that different business pubs put out, especially Fortune's different newsletters, CFO Daily, CHRO Daily, CEO Daily. And then for like sort of more entertainment, I like Consequence. They have a daily or close to it newsletter that has a lot of interesting stuff.
Very cool. Rapid fire question number 2. What is your favorite social media platform? Laura, we'll start with you.
Super 70s Sports.
Is that a social
Super
media
70
platform?
On social media?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Oh,
I thought you meant like an actual, so it's on Twitter. But my favorite platform is LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay. April?
Instagram.
Rapid fire question number 3. And we're taping this on International, or is it National Coffee Day? Coffee or alcohol, ladies?
Coffee.
Iced tea.
That's
Nice.
not. Is that wasn't an option?
That's acceptable. That's acceptable.
All right. If I had to choose between
and it
coffee
could be
and
alcohol. You never know.
Alcohol. I've never drank a cup of coffee in my life. How about that?
Is
Oh,
that
wow.
true?
A New Yorker that's never had a cup of coffee?
Never
How
once.
How did that happen?
I didn't ever make coffee and jump it into my mouth.
But you've never had it at a Starbucks? No
No.
one else has ever fed you a coffee that you drank?
Nope.
Never.
Wow.
Never.
I think you're the only person in the whole
Might
US
be.
that's never had
Might
coffee.
Definitely in New York. That you are a rare breed in New York. All right. Rapid fire question number 5. What's your favorite on the run food? April.
Yogurt. It's true.
Pizza, obviously.
Yes. Classic New York answer, and the right one.
See, I saved my New York reputation after the coffee answer.
Right, there you go. You brought it back.
You had to.
And rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career? Laura.
Meredith Marakovitz. She's he knows, who she's the Yankees commentator on air on the Yes Network.
Oh man, we are definitely friends. We are definitely friends at this point. All right, and April, what do you want to be after you finish this career?
An actor.
All right, very nice. All right, movies, movie theater, stage. Where are we?
Film, TV.
Film, TV.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
We will look for you then. April and Laura, this has been a terrific conversation and definitely the most fun one I've had in a while. Let people know how they can find both of you online.
So you can reach my agency is Trust Relations. It's trustrelations.agency. And my email address follows that. So it's april@trustrelations.agency.
I am Laura Schooler on LinkedIn, and my website is Schooler Communications, Schooler being my last name, SCHOOLER, communications.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.